Hey guys, happy Monday, November 18th. Great news for GameStop investors. Well, some of them anyways, others are upset. I don't know what to tell you, but here's the news. GameStop has appointed a new member to the board of directors. Nat Turner, the CEO of Collectors Holdings, the parent company of PSA, is now on the board at GameStop. The question is, with his ties to private equity, is this a good thing or not? Let's connect the dots and get right into it. Market Watch says GameStop tightens links with collectors. Let's go look at the SEC filing and look at the other details that weren't in the press release, and then we're going to connect the dots. Here on the screen, we have the official 8K filed with details about the appointment of Mr. Turner to the board of GameStop. Let's talk about a couple of interesting tidbits in this 8K. With Mr. Turner's appointment to the board of GameStop, the board size has increased from 5 to 6 members, and it tells us that his term is going to expire at the next annual meeting of stockholders in 2025, which is, in terms of corporate world, just right around the corner. I presume that he will be up for a revote at that time. The second thing that I have highlighted here is Mr. Turner will not be receiving any compensation for serving as a director. The last item that I have highlighted here is some details from GameStop about the revenue contribution from the collaboration between GameStop and PSA, which began middle of October, so about a month ago. The company tells us here in the 8K that up to this point, over the last 30 days or so, that collaboration has brought in revenue for GameStop of $1.53 million. I'm curious to know, what do you guys think about $1.5 million of revenue from customers dropping off cards at GameStop to be sent into PSA to be graded? We know that the profit off of that is certainly going to be a fraction of $1.5 million. And when we look at the total size of GameStop's revenue, is this really a big contributor? No, it is not really a big contributor. There is some added benefits from selling cards and maybe taking cards in for trade after they're graded and then people buy other merchandise. If I do some rough math at $16 per card, $1.53 million, let's call it 100,000 cards being sent in to be graded per month. Remember that grading cards is PSA's source of revenue, so they're only going to do a small margin share with GameStop. Let's say that GameStop is making $1 per transaction. That means in the early stage of this collaboration anyways, the contribution to gross profits for GameStop is about $100,000 per month. If we boil that percentage contribution to GameStop's gross profit, let's call it $300,000 in a quarter, we're talking about a contribution of about 0.02% to GameStop's gross profit per quarter. I go through these numbers with you to help you guys navigate your way through the pumper information and try and make non-emotional decisions about the contribution of PSA's collaboration with GameStop. To be fair to GameStop and all investors, remember this is just one piece of the whole trading card universe. GameStop is selling trading cards. They're selling them in the stores. They're selling them online. And I hope in the next quarterly earnings call, there's going to be a call, right? I hope that in the call or in the 10Q that they give us some details about how many cards are being sold in total and what the contribution of that is to revenues. Let's cross our fingers that we get those numbers. Now let's get into some talk about connecting the dots with private equity, because I know some of you guys love that, right? It's not really my thing. I think it's just a bunch of hocus pocus and misinformation, but some of you are really into it. And I didn't say much when GameStop partnered up with PSA, but now we have private equity injecting one of their own on the board of GameStop. Is this good or bad in your view? I want to hear from you. Let me know your comments down below. It wouldn't be fair to judge every other company in existence by their connections to private equity and then somehow give GameStop a freebie. What do we say now? What do we say? This one doesn't count, guys. Forget everything else I've told you the last 3 years. This one doesn't count because it's GameStop. So let's dive into the private equity connections of Nat Turner. Some of y'all might know this, but many of you might not, that PSA is owned by the collectibles company, which is owned by private equity, by hedge fund managers who were shorting GameStop in 2020 and 2021. We have this article from Business Insider, December 2nd, 2020. Billionaires Stephen Cohen and Dan Sundheim just struck a $700 million deal to take a collectibles company private. That was the company that owns PSA. And I didn't really say anything when GameStop partnered up with PSA. They got to do their thing. They got to try new niches. And I don't believe in the whole private equity connect the dots nonsense anyways. But let's look at a picture of what this map looks like now of these folks involved in GameStop on the board and the owners and the CEO of Collectors Holdings. Starting in the center bottom of our screen here with the box called Collectors Holdings, and moving to the left, we have Nat Turner, the CEO of Collectors Holdings and partial owner of Collectors Holdings, the company that owns PSA, now placed on the board of GameStop. However, if we look at the other owners of Collectors Holdings moving up into the green box, we have Daniel Sundheim, the owner of D1 Capital Partners, who famously lost $4 billion shorting GameStop in 2021. And the other owner of Collectors Holdings is Steve Cohen, who you guys know as another shorter of GameStop. That same Steve Cohen, the owner of Point72, who bailed out Melvin Capital's Gabe Plotkin, who was also shorting GameStop in 2021. So we have ties to three people at the top of this box in green who were shorting GameStop in 2021, now partnered up with GameStop via Collectors Holdings, and one of their buddies, Nat Turner, now placed on the board or invited to the board of GameStop. Now, I'm personally not the type of conspiracy guy to tell you that this is all bad, but there have been people telling you all along for many, many years that anybody that had any tie to private equity and sneaking their friends onto the board of companies was a bad thing. So I want to know from you guys, what do you think? What do you think about Collectors Holdings and Steve Cohen and Daniel Sundheim of Cohen Private Ventures, Point72, and D1 Capital now having a connect the dots tie directly into the board of GameStop? Did they turn over a new leaf? Or is this something that you're worried about? I have a feeling from what I'm reading on social media that some of you are upset about this, but I also know that there are going to be some of you that tell me, hey, Tony, not all private equity guys are bad. And that is kind of exactly the point of this whole video, guys. If you're listening to someone who's telling you all private equity folks are bad, how do you possibly reconcile this other than to say, this is the one exception? Everything else is true, but there is one exception, and there's always an exception because it's a GameStop. I'm just asking you to think, does that sort of creation of exceptions make sense to you? Because I don't get it. Like, pick a theory and stick to it, bros. Thank you for watching, guys. I look forward to hearing from you. I am Tony Denaro, and I will see you on the next video.